So when it comes to tasting bourbon, we all get something a little different sometimes. And after you've had a chance to try a lot of different things, you're gonna kind of develop things that are sort of your go-tos, your favorites. So myself, Bill, and Jennings have each selected 3 of our favorite bourbons. We're gonna start with a low proof, then we're gonna go to bottled and bond at 100 proof, and then we're gonna select a high proof that are our 3 favorite bourbons.
So today what we've selected for our first bottle on the low proof side, David selected a great bottle here. We were talking about this earlier, Buffalo Trace. Most people can find this around. It's such a good bourbon, different flavors each time you pick it up. It's a great one. I've picked up Four Roses. It's a low proof, it's an 80 proof. It's a great one to start with early in the evening, or for people who don't drink a lot of bourbon, it's a great one to start with. And you find it on any shelf anywhere out there. And Jennings has decided to choose the Woodford Reserve Double Oak. This, I believe, is a store pick, but you can find this anywhere on the shelf in any local ABC store or local store that you might be shopping at.
So I've got this Double Oak here. I'm gonna dive right into it. It's got some really nice notes to it. It smells really good when you got it in the glass. And it's got some great color. And the thing I like about it is when you start off with this one, it doesn't burn your taste buds, right? So as we go through the night, we don't want to start off with a high proof bourbon because it's tough to taste the lower ones. It kind of burns you up. This one's low. It's got a lot of flavor to it. This is definitely.
I can smell it over here. It smells
man,
really
you
good.
smell that?
Yeah,
it's one of my favorites.
It smells great.
You getting it over there at all?
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, you can smell it.
It's very good. It's got a lot more flavor than most anything else in that category, but they do 2 different barrels.
I'm getting jealous. I'm going to go ahead and pour mine while you're.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get this.
Let's go ahead and pour these.
Let's get this show on the road.
You got some Four Roses over there, right?
I do. Four Roses, 80 proof. You can tell just from the color of this, it's a lot lighter. When you hold these two up, it's a lot lighter than what you've got with yours. And you
smell
can
that.
Smell that too. So you can see it's light. Yeah. It's light, but
it's got a lot more.
I'm gonna smell the difference between the Four Roses and the.
It's a big difference.
Big difference.
Yeah.
With
a little bit more floral on the nose on the.
This one gets a little bit, some people call it dusty or funky, and it's got a great nose to it that's a little bit more intense. And then this one's got a little bit more of that hay and rye on the back end.
It does.
And then David's has a lot of that fruit and cherry flavor.
Very much so.
On the nose.
I don't know if you're getting we talked about this earlier too. But sometimes I get that cedary kind of taste out of the Buffalo Trace that I really enjoy.
Oh yeah.
There's maybe a hint of the cedar in this one.
Some bottles you get it, some bottles you don't.
Yeah.
That one's got some cedar in it?
Maybe a small hint. I don't know if that would have been the first note I would have gone to. I'm definitely getting. I get a little bit of a kind of a plum.
Yeah.
On Buffalo Trace, and I think that's kind of one of the reasons I like it. It does have that kind of. It's a little bit more fruit forward.
And when you guys,
I get less cherry than. Do you get cherry in this? I get less cherry in this.
Let me see it. Oh, it's less cherry than norm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's so interesting about these Buffalo Trace is that, they try to mix them like Maker's Mark and everybody else does, but Buffalo Trace to me has the most variation on bottles. So if you get a bottle of Buffalo Trace from the store and you don't like it, try one of your buddies.
Yeah, try another one.
You may like his. Try another one.
Just get another bottle.
Yeah, get another bottle.
It's not expensive. It's what, $30?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Four Roses is about that same $25, $30 price range.
Mine's a little more. Mine's $60, but Double Oak
that's because it's a store pick.
Yeah, it's Double Oaked is always a little bit more, but it's double the flavor, double the fun.
We talked about Buffalo Trace in our best bourbons to stock the bar with for a holiday party earlier, and we'll go ahead and put that link up here. But one of the things that really is great about Buffalo Trace is it kind of is one of those that even people who are maybe less used to drinking bourbon on a regular basis, they'll taste the Buffalo Trace, and it's kind of, it's one of those things that a lot of people are just going to like at a first pour.
Yeah, and as we talk about too, if this is something you want to mix, these are great ones you can mix these as well. Put them on ice, drink it however you like. We always want people to drink and enjoy bourbon the way they like to drink it.
And no wrong way to drink it. No wrong way to drink it, that's for sure.
True.
Yeah, this one's good though. Man, that's real good. You guys want to jump to our next one?
Let's do.
Yeah, we're going to go to the second. It's going to be our bottled and bond. I'll go ahead and start. I got the Early Times. And this one is becoming a little bit harder to find. I think it's going to depend on where you are. Probably 6 months ago, I could walk into any store and see a shelf full of these. A little bit harder to find now. Very inexpensive. I think this may be a smidge under $30, maybe a $27 to $25 to $27 bottle, bottled and bond. So that's 100 proof. So that's my choice.
And I've picked Heaven Hill bottled and bond. This is a phenomenal bottle. This was on the shelf here in South Carolina where I got it. I've seen it on the shelf in Tennessee as well. So it seems like this is kind of getting out there, maybe coming off the allocated list. And more folks are being able to put this on the shelf and have this one out there for folks to enjoy.
That's a great choice. Bill actually stole mine because the Heaven Hill bottled and bond is. I mean, you cannot go wrong with that one.
It's a great one.
It's a little more expensive. I think that's about a $70 bottle, isn't it?
It's a little bit. I think 55
Depending
to
on where
70
you go.
range. Yeah, but I'll share.
Thank you. That's what friends are for, right?
That's right. And then I picked a really inexpensive bottle as well. This is a bottle of bond JTS Brown. It's been around for a long time. Guys that are in the bourbon world that have been in for a while, they love this. This is like one that they're all like, oh, I gotta have tons of it because it's so good. So this one's really inexpensive. Screw cap. I mean, this is maybe $18. So a lot of my buddies.
Well, you win the cheapest bottle and bond.
For sure, always.
Let's go down a quick rabbit trail because I think this could be important. I want to take a minute to talk about what a bonded bourbon or bottled and bond actually means. Bill, you want to tell us a little bit about where that came from and what that terminology means?
Sure, glad to. So first off, you'll notice on the label that it's stated as bottled and bond. Any bottled and bond bourbon has to have that statement on the label. The Bottled and Bond Act of 1897 is what created the ability and need for bourbons to be shown as bonded. A couple things that have to be done is it has to be a 4-year bourbon and it has to be bottled at 100 proof.
The other two things that you have to do is it has to be one distillate from one season and it has to be aged in a bonded warehouse. So those are the things that you have to do. Of course, there's other things, of course, that are on the list as well, but those are the most important things. But the nice thing about bottled and bond is that if you tend to like 100 proof, if it doesn't burn you up, then you usually can go and at least know that these bottled and bonds are going to always be at least 4 years old. They're going to be 100 proof, and that's important. You can actually go in there.
Yeah, being able to go in and see, hey, it's a bottled and bond bourbon. I know it's 100 proof. You don't have to look around. You always know that that's there. And that was part of what that 1897 Act was for and why they did that, is to give the folks that were drinking bourbon and buying the bourbon way back then a clear understanding of what they were getting.
That's right.
With that bourbon. Now, we haven't tasted these, so let's taste these up. So again, I'm drinking Heaven Hill. You're drinking...
I've got JTS Brown.
And then you're drinking the Early Times.
Early Times.
So...
Great. It's a great sound. What a great sound.
Love it.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
You're here.
And I'm, if you watched our video already, one of our other videos, Jennings talked about the small glasses. I'm drinking out of the small glass just to check it out and see how it works today for me. So
I converted them.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm drinking Heaven Hill out of a Buffalo Trace one, so
it is what it is.
We're equal opportunity here.
Now this is not near as good as the original one that I had before, which was double oaked, but it's good. It's real good. It makes a really mean old fashioned.
I'm sorry, Four Roses. This is a whole lot better bourbon than the Four Roses I was drinking. Oh gosh.
I don't know that I would say
this stuff is delicious. This is I love that.
Heaven Hill is just, it really is hard to beat. I said it a minute ago, and that is just one of those, that's going to be a good choice. You just can't go wrong with that.
Absolutely.
I think for me, I don't know that I can draw a really direct comparison between the Buffalo Trace and the Early Times Bottled and Bond, because these are such different flavors. So very different flavor profile. I get a lot of that kind of almost like a brown sugar sweetness to this. Maybe being a little tiny bit higher proof makes some difference. It's pretty close to the Buffalo Trace because the Buffalo Trace is a 90. So being at only 100, it's only a hair higher, but still, I think there's just a lot more richness in that, and less fruity, I think, than the.
So mine was a big jump.
Mm-hmm.
So I went from 80 proof to 100, and you know that jump pretty. You can tell that jump. So
and mine went from 90 to 100. So it's kind of the same as the Buffalo Trace. So not a lot of change there, but there's a lot of change in flavor. This
These are really good.
double oaked it's very good.
It's delicious.
It's delicious.
It is delicious.
So as we're working our way through, again, we started with that kind of lower proof. Good place to start, like Jennings mentioned earlier, it's a good place to start if you're gonna kind of move through a few in an evening. We started with the low, we went to our bottled and bond, and we've each selected a higher proof bourbon. And so we're gonna do some comparisons about what that higher proof does from a tasting standpoint, and just talk about why we chose the ones that we did. I can kick us off. This is probably one of my absolute favorite all times. Anything from Elijah Craig that I've had, I've really enjoyed. This is the Elijah Craig barrel proof. This one is 124.8 proof.
Now, what's interesting about that bottle that David's talking about is that they release a couple of them every year, and each one of them is a different proof, and it's pulled at a different time of the year. So
That's
every
right.
single one of those bottles is always going to be a little different on its proof.
Right. So so tell the viewers how you know that. Obviously you're going to have to look at the label, and on the
and it's going to be written on the label.
It's on the label it will give you the lot that it is. So you always want to look and look at the forums that you're listening to, or the bourbon other bourbon channels, our channel. Look at whoever is talking about the different ones. It'll tell you which one it's just dropped, or it's a good one that's out. The different tastes and stuff like that. We'll be going through these different Elijah Craigs as we continue to grow.
Every one of the Elijah Craigs that they put out for the most part is in this same bottle.
Right.
They have different looks. So this one has a little thing across the top there. You can zoom in and see that. And that denotes that it's a barrel proof, and then on the front it'll tell you the actual proof on it, so you can look and see that. One really interesting thing that I don't know if you guys know this or not. This is kind of fun. Every one of these that you get off the shelf, on the side here you can actually see it's 12 years old. Every single time they put these out, it's been 12 years old. So that's kind of neat. You get a 12-year-old bourbon.
That is interesting.
And at that price, because it's usually a pretty decent price. A 12-year bourbon at that price is always good.
$70-ish.
Yeah. Now, what's your high proof?
So mine's a little different. Not everybody likes this. Not everybody has a good connotation on this, but this is Jack Daniel's barrel proof. So if you don't like Jack Daniel's Old No. 7, you'll probably like this. I have never given this to somebody at the house and they've been like, it's not that good. Everybody loves how it smells and tastes. So this is one that you should, if you can find it, it's definitely worth looking for. It's got a gold label, so the other ones have either a black or a different color label. This one has a gold label, so look for that one. This one happens to be a hero selection, so it's a little bit different. It's harder to find, but it's the same proof levels. So
All right.
So fancy.
All right. So okay. So now, here's the controversy. This is Jack Daniel's. It's made in Tennessee. Is it a bourbon or is it just a whiskey?
leave some comments. Let us know what you guys think.
Let us know what you think, guys. There's a lot of discussion out there whether Jack Daniel's comes in as a bourbon or not.
Yep.
So
whiskey or bourbon, doesn't matter. It's still really good.
It's still delicious.
It's still delicious.
So I'm gonna put this one in a small glass, guys. What do you guys?
I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing a small
Yeah,
glass.
I'm gonna grab this.
Give me that small one if you don't mind. I'm gonna do that.
Sure, there you go.
Thanks, David.
All right.
Mine's noisy with these dog tags on here.
Oh, and the one thing I didn't mention, I believe this is a single barrel that I picked up at one of my local stores that I shop in. We like to support their single barrel program any way we can, and they usually pick some really good bottles. So support your local stores with their single barrel programs.
A lot of
Going
the
back
store
to the
picks
small.
will be. And then also the another thing, if you're looking for something that generally barrel proof is going to put you in that higher proof category, but also if you see other terminology like cask strength or something like that, that's going to mean the same thing. And it's the
really
proof
similar.
that it was in when the bottle was, or when the barrel was open.
You know, even at 120 proof, that doesn't taste as hot as that Heaven Hill does.
Yep.
It's nice and smooth. You can tell it's got proof to it. But man, that's really good.
So one of the reasons we did this triple tasting, right, is we wanted you guys to understand that just because the bottle has 120 or 130 proof on it, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be that hot. There's different ones that taste different. So don't be afraid of it. Try it. You may really like it. You may find that it's perfect.
And the heat's what scares some folks off from drinking bourbon. It's too hot or it's too strong or whatever. You have to kind of try these and try some different things. Find what you like. Find what you enjoy.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah, because you're going to find, you can see here, I mean, look at how many bottles we've got here. And this is just a very small selection of what's out in the marketplace. But they all have different flavor profiles, different proofs. Come across when you drink them differently. Some can be mixed if you want to. So it's really about trying and finding what you like. Finding a store that you work with that has a flavor profile that matches up to you. Just like I said, this is a single barrel at a store I shop from a lot. I buy a lot of their single barrels, and they all seem to be bottles that I enjoy. And if you find somebody like that, it really comes across and helps you pick bottles that you really will enjoy drinking as well.
Yep. This one, you mentioned, you were talking about the age statement on the side, the 12-year age. And so one of the things, and that's going to be a little bit on the higher end for most bourbons, at least for my palate, that's 12 is about one of the higher limits in terms of taste for me. I get a little bit more of that oaky flavor. There's a little bit more of that kind of spice kind of thing with a longer aged bourbon. At least that's what I get. I don't know if you guys have experienced the same thing.
Yeah, the longer it sits in that barrel, goes through the heat cycles, the cold cycles, it's going to change that flavor profile. So the bottle and bond that we had earlier typically is a 4-year bourbon. That's a pretty young bourbon, you know. And so when you're comparing that to a bourbon that's 12 years old, that's been sitting in the cask for another 8 years, and going through all those cycles, it will make a tremendous difference in the flavor profile. Obviously, the nosing of it, I've told you guys, I mean, the nosing piece is a little different for me, but the flavor piece of it really changes.
It really does.
Yeah, and we've tasted some old bourbon before.
We have.
You know, that we've got that we share that was distilled in 1960 or 61, I guess.
61.
And man, it had a completely different funk to it. So
it was also 15 years old. So.
Yeah, it was a 15-year. Yeah.
So it was distilled in 61, then we drank it. It was 15 years old. It was good.
It was
funky.
It was funky, but funky's not bad.
Well, while we're talking about how we each we pick up different things from each other, I want to compare here, because when I drink a higher proof bourbon, I feel like there's a greater difference in the palate when I'm initially drinking that bourbon to the finish.
Yep.
I feel like the difference between the palate and the finish is much greater at a higher proof than at a lower proof. I don't tend to notice a big finish flavor, I guess, if you will, on even on a bottle and bond. I don't catch that as much. Do you?
So you don't pick it up in the younger bourbons. You pick it up more. So a longer finish.
Right.
You have that flavor, that taste, the different flavors that come through.
It's more complex, right?
Well, also in a higher proof.
Higher proof and higher age.
And higher age.
Yeah,
I get more. I get taken down a longer, more complex, tasting experience.
And these higher proof bourbons are kind of a newer thing. They didn't used to do this a long time ago. It's something that's come around somewhat recently. So you don't see a lot of that in the old ones. So that's why we're talking about. There's some videos out there, some distillers that are saying that, you really, I don't know why anybody would ever drink it above 90. It's kind of interesting. You can see those.
That's right.
All over YouTube.
And I think Elmer T. Lee was one of the ones that talked about keeping those bourbon, keeping the proof low, and the way he liked to drink it, and what he mixed his bourbon, which I don't know anybody that mixes Elmer T. Lee, but he was one of the guys out there that everybody wants to emulate. So.
So at all these that we had today, you can get most of these on the shelf.
Yep.
That was one of the things that we're wanting you to see today, is you can get most of these out there. It's not something that's really highly allocated. You're going to have to look, but you can find them.
Yeah, and the single barrels, again, an Ezra Brooks single barrel. This is a cask strength. I mean, this is good bourbon.
It's robust.
I mean, it's really good. I mean, and you can tell the difference in the darkness of, like I said earlier, about how light this Four Roses is. You can see.
Oh yeah.
You can see a huge difference. From a cask strength bourbon to something that's a lighter 80 proof, there is it's a massive difference. And
it is.
But the flavor, this compared to this, they don't compare. The bottle or the Ezra Brooks here, the Heaven Hill Step Up was just, both of them are just excellent bourbons.
Yeah.
And very enjoyable.
Absolutely. So that's when you get into these higher age statements, like David was talking about, almost 12 years. And you get the higher proofs, that's where you really start getting some different taste. You really do. You can tell a difference.
For sure.
So these are things that as you go along, you may see. It's just worth picking up one to try it, I think.
Yep. So each of us has talked about our 3 picks, our low, our bottled and bond, and our high proof favorite bourbons. Let us know what yours are. We'd love to see some discussion in the comments. We hope you'll stick with us. We got a lot more cool stuff in some future episodes, so stick around.
Don't forget, drink, enjoy, share. That's what our motto is. We're here to drink bourbon, enjoy it, and share it with others. Thanks for being here.
And we can cut and we can come back to that.
Yeah, why don't you cut that? I mean, way to put me on the spot. Cut. Can we just start over?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take it.
3, 2.